Hi everybody, welcome to the Disney ILS Audit Standards Chapter 2. So in this Chapter 2, we are going to discuss things what we haven't covered in Chapter 1 and also to give a quick recap about what we are going to discuss. So this Disney ILS Audit Standard will be fully focused on the health and safety guidelines released by Disney in the year 2022, and this will be implemented in all factories producing Disney branded products. And this this new standards will come into effect from 1st March 2023. To begin the session with, first let's discuss on what the Disney ILS audit and audit rating means. So to check whether the factory comply with the Disney standards, Disney conducts a Disney ILS audits in factories where the Disney products are produced. So the findings raised in the Disney ILS audits would be categorized into three, the findings would be the minimum complex standard violation, serious violations, or non-minimum complex standard violations. So MCS violations are major violations. So these kind of findings would create more impact on the workers' health and safety. So these findings would not be encouraged by Disney, and it is not acceptable. And then coming to the serious violations, these also have impact on the workers' health and safety, but compared to the minimum complaint standard violation, the severity would be a bit less, but however, this should also be rectified. And the third category is non-MCS violations. So these are kind of NCs creating low impact on the health and safety of the workers. And on the right hand side, you can see what this MCS and serious violation means. So let me just give a small example. What happens when an MCS violation is reported in the audit report, and what happens when a serious violation is reported in the audit. So when an MCS violation is reported in the initial Disney ILS audit, the factory would be given another 120 days time to rectify that MCS violation, and also the factory should comply with the new Disney standard, and no new MCS violation should be identified during that audit. If the factory failed to comply with this, then after the follow-up audit, the factory would be losing their farmer. And then about serious, when the factory is reported with a serious finding, one finding that is fine, two finding that is also okay. But when it's three or more than three, then all those three or more than three serious rating would be converted into three or more MCS rating. So then again, during the follow-up audit, all those findings should be closed. So in this slide, we will discuss on what basis the Disney has categorized the MCS, non-MCS, and serious violations. So they have a total of 90 benchmarks, of which from different categories, like 15 from general health and safety, 23 from fire emergency safety, 11 from medical and first aid, 7 from personal protective equipments, and so on. So we have a total of 90 benchmarks, and these 90 benchmarks are again further categorized as three. That is, 7 will be treated as MCS violations, 48 will be treated as serious violations, and 35 will be treated as non-MCS violations. So now we have a small example. What happens during the audit when an MCS or serious violation is reported? See, just for an example, during the initial audit, when three serious violations are reported, automatically, as we discussed, three serious violations would also be converted into three MCS violations. So here the audit fails to meet the MCS. So the factory would be given an additional chance within 120 days to clear all these findings, as well as the factory should not be having further additional MCS violations. Then let's talk about the follow-up audit, what happens. And in this case, during the follow-up audit, if none or a portion of the serious violation identified in the initial audit are remediated, then what happens is, like, this is not 100% complaint. Then automatically what happens, audit fails to meet the MCS. So the former would be revoked. And at the same time, like, all the three serious violations identified in the prior audit are remediated. In this case, factory meets the MCS. and they can continue with the existing pharma. Now let's discuss about the records the factory should maintain for the workers' health and safety hazard assessment and work area inspection. So, a self or external risk assessment audit should be conducted in the factory. So, here I have taken a manufacturing unit, that is garment manufacturing unit, as an example. So, in garment manufacturing unit, we'll be having process like sewing, checking, ironing, fusing, printing, and other kind of works. So, all areas where the workers uh, have the access, and all those areas should be assessed for its risk. And here we have a small example of the hazard identification, that is risk assessment done in a particular portion in the garment manufacturing unit. We have taken cutting session as an example. So in this cutting area, the hazards involved in cutting are like people not using cut resistant glove during the time of operation, and the sharp edge tools are not fastened to their work areas, and we're using some kind of blunt scissors or sharp tools. So these are kind of hazards what has been identified in the cutting area. So the risk happened by these hazards are like this can create injury to the workers, hands, fingers, or other parts of the body. And then the next column says how frequently this happens, and then what is the severity of that cause, then who are the people involved in that risk, then what are the measures the factory has to take in order to comply with this. So here the factory should give training to the workers, and that should also be monitored. And at last, the corrective and preventive action required, that is simply like a continuous process, like frequent check, assessment or inspection has to be conducted, and review meeting should be conducted, so that this practice should not get stopped anywhere, and this would be a continuous process. So in addition to that, the factory should also have a third party internal or I mean third party audit report or internal audit complaints inspection report. And then health and safety training should be given to all the employees working in the factory. So not only providing training to the workers and maintaining their attendance, the factory should also ensure that the information provided during the training session has reached the workers effectively. To check that the factory management can conduct quiz programs, they can have some tests and skill demonstration programs in order to understand how the uh, workers knowledge is about this health and safety training. And then in case hazardous materials are stored in the factory, the employees handling those hazardous materials should be given proper training, like where to store those hazards and how to handle those hazards. And emergency response procedures must be established to manage hazardous spills, leakages, and workers exposed to hazardous materials. And MSDS should be available in the factory for all chemicals used in the factory by the workers, and those MSDS should be in the workers' understandable language. And then most importantly, the factory should have a logout and tagout procedure. In short, we call it as a LOTO procedure. So in the next slide, we'll discuss in detail what this LOTO procedure is and how to handle this LOTO. So what is this LOTO procedure? So it's a procedure to control hazardous energy release during the process of maintenance. So during the time of machinery maintenance or any kind of maintenance, if service has been done, the factory should ensure that no hazardous energies are released from those machineries or part of machineries that would impact the health and safety of the workers. So the energy includes electrical, mechanical, hydraulic, radiation, pneumatic, chemical, thermal, gravitational, and steam. And so it doesn't mean that all the factories or manufacturing units producing Disney branded products or whatever products would be having all these kind of energies. So some factories will be having only few of them, and some factories some kind of energy may not be applicable. So what all kind of energies are applicable. So for that, the factory should have a LOTO procedure. So this is a simple LOTO procedure. So it is to lock the flow of energy. During the time of maintenance, the flow of energy should be first locked, and then a person should be assigned to do this work. That is, the flow of energy should be locked by that person, and the locked area should be under his supervision, and then releasing should also be done by that person. So a person should be responsible, and then a tag should be hanged on that area where the service has been done. So the tag should contain information like who is the responsible person, what kind of operation is performed, and when this particular work will be completed. And it also should say that no other person other than this responsible person should handle this or operate the particular switches. And after the completion of the work, the tag hanged on that particular device can be removed, and the energy can be unlocked. This should also be done by the responsible person. And in this slide, we have some images of how this logout and tagout is like. So it doesn't mean that this is the only type of logout and tagout procedures. There are different kinds of LOTO procedures available in the market. Some may be customized or some may be standardized. But this is just a small example how this looks like. So there we can see a lock and key, and on the right hand side you can see a control box that has been under maintenance is locked by using a lock, and the key of that lock will be available by the responsible person, and a tag hanging on the lock will have the name of the responsible person, also the work performed, and then other additional information like when this work will be completed. Now let's discuss about the confined space. If a confined space is available in the factory, what are the procedures that a factory or the manufacturing unit should follow? So confined space is nothing but a place which is associated with the production or a bit far away from the production area. The area could be like a tank or utility wall or some other large space where it have the provision for the worker to enter and perform a particular task and come out of that. So these kind of areas are called as confined spaces. So in such areas, we should need a clear entry and exit return procedure. Then permitting process should be written in the procedure. Like if a person is going for service or for any other purpose, he should get permission from any authorized person. That should be clearly mentioned in the written procedure. And then what kind of personal protective equipment should be used while entering into that area, and from where he can get that personal protective equipment. And some kind of confined spaces includes hydrant tank area, overhead or underground tank, ETP tank area, motor room, or any other kind of storage or non-storage area that is isolated from the manufacturing plant. Next, evacuation, that is emergency evacuation. So during the time of fire emergency, all the workers and all other people within the factory should have a safe passage to evacuate and to safely reach the safe assembly point. This is what we call it as emergency evacuation. And for this emergency evacuation, we should have a return evacuation procedure that should be available in the majority of the workers' understandable language. And EMAP, that is evacuation map, should be posted in all applicable areas. Like if there is a production unit or if there is a production room where 2 or 3 workers work, which is isolated from the production area, in such area also this EMAP should be displayed. So EMAP should clearly indicate things like where that person is standing currently, so through which way he can safely move outside the building during the time of fire emergency, and how we can reach the safe assembly point. And in addition, the map should also have details like where the fire protective equipments are placed, and other relevant information should also be available. And The workers with disablement. If any worker with disablement or special need is employed in the factory, then a person should be pre-assigned for that worker to make him safely evacuate out of the building during the time of fire emergency. Then all aisle markings, that is passages, corridors, exit, stairways, ramps, fire protective equipment should be lighted with emergency lights. The next one is fire emergency evacuation. So, in case of any fire emergency, the fire alarm or the visual alarm placed in the factory should be clearly visible and audible for all the workers working in the factory on all corners of the factory. So, if a siren is raised during the time of fire emergency, a person working in any corner of the factory should the voice should be audible to that worker. And all passage but not limited to aisle marking, corridor space, and any area leading towards a safe evacuation must not be less than as prescribed in the health and safety document. So in chapter 1, we had discussed in detail about what this talks about. Like Disney has given a standard measurement for the exit passages. If that depends upon the number of occupants in each area. If, say, for example, if we have n number of occupants in a particular room, the Disney standard clearly indicates what should be the measurement of the exit doors or exit stairways, and how many number of doors or stairs should be available, and what should be the least requirement. So the one more thing is that Disney also says that in case if any country law or any regional law is available in that particular area where the factory is located, then the stricter law would be applicable. Like say for example, if Disney demands for 100 centimeter, and if our local law says that 80 centimeters is required, then the stricter law here is 80 centimeter, so that would be considered. At the same time, if the Disney says 100 centimeter and the local law says 120 centimeter, then here the stricter law is 100 centimeter, so this 100 centimeter would be applicable. So now let's discuss about what are the inspection documents that should be maintained in the factory. So the inspection record for all means of egress, including exit components, alarms, that is fire alarms, fire detection equipment, suppression system, all number of equipments available in the factory should be at least checked once in a month and ensure that the device is functioning properly. Like say for example, if my factory have 20 number of fire cylinders, 30 number of fire detectors, and 50 number of fire alarms. So in such case, all these individual devices should also be tested for its efficiency. The test report should be in such a way that the inventory should contain all the exit components and emergency equipments, and a checklist of the inspection and maintenance tasks to be performed for each item should be defined properly. And the maintenance record, what we are producing for the audit on what we are maintaining in the factory, should contain details like when the service has been performed, that is the date, and what type of inspection is performed, whether visual inspection or functional inspection, functional test, and then what kind of maintenance or repair work is performed in that particular device, and finally the name of the person who performed the task. And this testing should also include the sprinkler system components. It doesn't mean that all the sprinkler nozzles or sprinkler head need to be tested. So in sprinkler system, we should have a testing point either within the factory or projected outside the factory. So that point has to be tested and the test should be recorded. Now let's discuss a very important topic. What are these 7 MCS violations that the Disney has defined? The first one is evacuation drill not conducted periodically. The period what Disney say here is 6 months, but it is not that it should be conducted once in 6 months. If you have your country law or local law in that region which says it should be conducted in 2 months or 1 month, then that would be applicable. As Disney says that stricter law will be applied. And then the evacuation drill conducted should include all the workers and all the people available on the factory during the time of drill, and all shift workers should also be included. Let's say, for example, if the factory is operating in 2 or 3 different shifts on a day, so all these shift people should be given proper separate evacuation drill. Then any means of obstruct egress should be treated as MCS violation. That is, if there is no safe way for the worker to reach the assembly point, if that particular area is obstructed by some solid objects or object where it obstruct the passage of the worker, that would also be treated as MCS violation. Then exit room not opening in a single motion or exit passage leading to another room. So this would also be treated as MCS violation. Then minimum number of exit per story not met. As we discussed in the earlier slide, that Disney has given some standards like these many number of exits, or this should be the measurement of the exit doors or stairways. So those criteria should be met. And unsafe electrical wiring is also treated as MCS violation. And dormitories attached to the production unit or warehouse. So dormitory in the sense like it can be a hostel or it can be a housing area that is given to the workers or the employee by the employer. So those areas should be separated from the production unit and warehouse. Now let's discuss about some serious violations. Here we are not going to discuss all the serious violations because we have many number of serious. So in general, we'll discuss about some number of serious violations that happens very frequently. The first one is personal protective equipments not used by the worker or not given to the workers by the employer. So this will also be treated as serious violation. Any statutory documents or permit not obtained. Then aisle marking, that is the safe passage area is faded, that would also be treated as a serious violation. And secondary container is not provided to the chemicals stored in the factory or the production area would be also treated as serious violation. And emergency light failure during the time of audit when tested would be treated as serious violation. And inspection record, as we discussed in this slide earlier, so we should have a proper inspection record for all the exit components. If exit components are missing in the inspection record, or if the factory is not maintaining the proper inspection record, then that would also be treated as serious violation. Some illustrative pictures or images from serious violation, like the first image, you can see a staircase without one side handrail, either not providing handrail on one side of the staircase, on either side of the staircase would be treated as serious violation. And then on the second image, you can see some workers working without wearing face mask. So that is the personal protective equipment required for that kind of operation to be performed. So this is also treated as serious violation. And then here we can see a person handling the chemical without wearing the respiratory mask. But however, we have hand glove and aprons. Might be boot would also be available. But still, not wearing the respiratory mask is also treated as serious violation. Then worker using machines without having proper guards like needle guards or eye guards would be treated as serious violation. And areas where the chemicals are stored without secondary containers are also considered as serious violation. Some MCS illustration are like this is the unsafe wiring. This is the very worst case picture which I have taken. So this kind of unsafe wiring would also lead the factory report to an MCS violation. And passage block, that you can see the factory has given a proper passage to the worker, that aisle marking is provided and the arrow indication is there, but however those passage is blocked by some fabrics or by goods. So this would also be treated as MCS violation. And then fire protective equipment blocked, that is the workers cannot access that fire protective equipment because of the blockage. So this thing would also be treated as MCS violation. In order to get rid of things what we have discussed now, like how to get rid of MCS violation, serious or non-MCS, the Disney has given some recommendation where the factory can follow this so that the risk can be avoided. So those are like the factory should have a proper written policy for all the health and safety standards available in the factory, and a written procedure should be available for all the policies. A proper person should be assigned to take care of these activities. Training and communication should be given to all the workers, staff, wherever and to whomever it is applicable. And all these things, that is the policy, procedure, responsible persons, comments, and the training and communication should be documented properly. And then continuous monitoring as well as a continuous improvement system should be implemented, like say for example monthly review meeting or review meeting once in 3 months. So these kind of things can take uh, any issues to the top management so that the issues can be rectified. So these are all some recommendations that Disney has given. So this is for a general information, like from April 1, 2023. So these are the five agencies who are eligible to conduct the Disney ILS audits, like Bureau Veritas, Elevate, Intertech, Social Compliance Service Asia, and UL Verification Service. So this list may change from time to time. So as of now, so these are the five nominated agencies. So, an additional information about pharma is a facility and merchandise authorization. So, this is a certificate that has been issued by Disney to the vendor for their, that is the Disney branded product to be manufactured in a particular facility. The pharma will be having the FAC number, which is a unique number that is given to individual facility. So, let's say for example, if a facility is doing Disney orders or Disney business with more than five customers, then each five customers will be receiving pharma from Disney for that particular facility. And suppose in case if one pharma of any customer is revoked due to MCS violation or any kind of other activities, then immediately all other pharma of that factory or facility will also be revoked. So as I mentioned, FOMO is a centralized certification and the FAC number will be common for all the customers. So there are certain things that we have to keep in mind about the Disney audits, like the MCS violation identified in the initial audit must be addressed before the follow-up audit, which will happen in 120 days from the date of notification. So that will be reviewed by the auditors during the follow-up audit. And any unclosed MCS violations or any new MCS violations identified or any three new serious violations identified or any three serious violations that has been reported in the initial audit is addressed partially or not addressed would also be treated as an MCS violation. So if such things happen in the follow-up audit, then the pharma would be revoked. And then three serious violation is always equal to three MCS violation. And former reward facility is considered as prohibited user by Disney, which means that for the facility where the former is revoked, the facility cannot even do Disney branded products even if the IP is not available. So remove all Disney branded products in 30 days from the date of notification received by the factory. And this we have to keep in mind, like in case if you are submitting a external audit report, like say for example SEDEX SCI 2000 RAP audit report to any new customer for Disney approval. So please review your document properly whether the NCs mentioned in that audit is meeting the minimum compliance standard of Disney. If there is any violation identified, so please we suggest not to submit that report to the new customer, because if you do so, you would also be losing the pharma, or your factory would be in trouble, for even for the existing customers. So you will be receiving an MCS notification, MCS violation notification from Disney, and then things gets complicated. So it's better review the document properly, and if MCS violation is not present, and if there is no more than three serious violation, then it is advisable to submit those report to the customer for the Disney approval. So the new health and safety guidelines and forced laboring guidelines that is effective from 1st March 2023 is available in the Disney website. So whether you can have access to the document where you'll be having in detail about what this MCS violation is, what this non-MCS violation is, which are listed as MCS, non-MCS, and as we discussed, the Disney has given a table, a column like what should be the width and height and the number of requirement of exits and the stairways and all those things that you can access. So this is the hyperlink where the Disney new standards are available, and all new updates related to Disney will be available in this website. Logging in to that particular hyperlink, it will be redirecting to the left hand side page where you can see operating responsibility menu. From there, choose supply chain, and once you click the supply chain, you will be redirected to the right hand side page where you have two menus like supply chain code of conduct. So that is the Disney supply chain code of conduct, which will be available in more than 10 plus languages. uh, that is free for access. And also the second menu is ILS program requirements. There you'll be able to see the health and safety sublimation guide, then forced labor guide, and the nominated Disney authorized agencies list. All those kind of information would be accessed from that menu. So by this we come to the end of this session. So hope you all have enjoyed this video. So I'll soon come up with the chapter 1 of Disney ILS standards, where we'll discuss in general and more about what Disney actually requires, what is meant by this ILS standard, how this ILS standard is determined, and who is framing the code of conduct. All those things would be discussed in chapter. Thank you.